All right, so for the final time, I want to welcome you all to Best Practices for Resumes and Cover Letters, the webinar. This is a presentation of the New York State and CSEA Partnership for Education and Training. My name is Jessica Rossman, and I'll be your host for the webinar. And our instructors today will be Judith Koman and Tanya Stevenson. I want to take a moment to just point out a few things. The first is, as you can all tell, you have been muted to keep background noise to a minimum. So if you have any questions or comments as we're going through, we're going to have you rely pretty heavily on the chat box, which a lot of you have already gotten familiar with and is great. If you haven't, you're just joining, make sure you open that chat box by clicking on the chat bubble button at the bottom right-hand side of your screen to open it. Then you can type your message where it says enter chat message here and press enter on your keyboard to share. The only thing I do ask is that you make sure that everyone is selected in that send to area. That allows our instructors to see the questions. I will be monitoring the chat primarily, but it's always good to make sure everyone can see it. And then lastly, we are going to be participating in lots of activities today, and the other tool I want you to feel comfortable with is that raise hand button. That's located at the bottom of your screen. It looks like an icon of a hand in the air. So go ahead and click that for me so you know where it is. So you're telling me that you know where it is, and you'll see a hand go up next to your name in the participants panel. I'll see it there too. Wonderful. And then to put it down, you're going to click on that button again. So you can use this to let me know if you have a question, or you'll also be using it to participate in a couple of activities. All right, and then the last thing is that this webinar, as all of our webinars are, is being recorded. So if you feel like you missed something or you want to come back to it again, you can always check it out either on our partnership YouTube website or in SLMS, I should say, the Statewide Learning Management System. You can also find our recordings there. All right, so as I mentioned previously, today's webinar is sponsored by the New York State and CSEA Partnership for Education and Training, or as many people refer to us, just the partnership. And if you're less familiar with the partnership, we are an organization that administers education and training programs for CSEA represented employees through labor management cooperation. It's funded through negotiated agreements between New York State and CSEA. The partnership typically offers in-person classroom training, online learning, educational advisement services, grants, tuition benefits, labor management services, and other education and training programs, including the webinar you're attending today. In essence, the partnership is a joint labor management organization whose mission is to promote career mobility, improve job skills, support workplace safety and health, and promote effective labor management relations. You can always learn more about us on our website or by calling us directly, and I'll be providing this contact information and the career mobility offices again at the end of today's webinar. All right, so now that we all know enough about the partnership and we know a little bit more about you, I am going to get started with this webinar, and I'm going to turn the presentation over to your first instructor, Judith.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jessica, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar called Best Practices for Resumes and Cover Letters. My name is Judith Koman, and Tanya Stevenson is also here to present today's webinar. We both work in the Career Mobility Office located within the Department of Civil Service. The Career Mobility Office takes policy direction and program administration from the Office of Employee Relations and the Department of Civil Service. Our office was created because of the union's interest in educating their members on the merit system and providing them with information and resources on their mobility options within the merit system. To help you with your next career move, during this webinar, we're going to focus on the basics of how to present your knowledge, skills, and abilities in a professional way by creating a well-developed resume and cover letter. First, we will review the ways you can identify the unique qualities you bring to the job market. Then we will discuss how to research job opportunities and agencies that match your skill set, values, and experience. Next, we'll identify the basic building blocks of resumes and cover letters. And finally, we'll give you some ideas for customizing your resume and cover letter. Along the way, we will be providing you with resources, reference materials, and helpful tips to add to your job search toolbox. There are some specific topics that we will not be able to address during this webinar, and the first is individual questions pertaining to your specific work history. We have found that everyone's situation is different. We welcome you to contact our office where we can individually discuss your personal questions in more detail. Our contact information will be located at the end of this presentation. Unfortunately, this format of presentation will not allow us time to review or discuss your personal resume. Again, if you would like to discuss your resume in more detail, you can contact the Career Mobility Office or the Department of Labor's One-Stop Career Center in your area, and their contact information will also be located at the end of this presentation. And finally, we're also not able to discuss questions related to salary. Salary determinations are made by the hiring agency and the Office of the State Comptroller. So if you ever have questions about salary, you will need to contact your hiring agency. Contact information for the various agency human resource offices, along with the Business Services Center Payroll Administration Unit, can be found at the phone directory link that is shown at the bottom of your screen. Okay, so before we go any further, I want to ask you a question. Do you know what your next career move is or where you might be looking to go?
All right, let's use that raise hand button right off the bat. If you know what your kind of next move is, go ahead and click on the raise hand button. If you're not sure, you can leave it down. All right, I'll give everybody just a moment to find it again. And so far, I have 6 hands raised, Judith.
Okay, well, thank you guys for participating. If you raised your hand, effectively answering yes, you know what your next career move is, then you'll want to visit the State Jobs NY website. This website is where most state agencies post their vacancies. In addition, you may want to contact the personnel office of a particular state agency to identify their specific vacancies. If you didn't raise your hand, meaning you don't know what your next career move is, that's totally okay. You would actually benefit from visiting the Career Mobility website and using a useful search feature called Got It. Got It allows you to search a specific title, agency, occupation, or geographical location. If you don't know information about your job title, we encourage you to start by conducting a title search. Ultimately, though, whether you answered yes or no, you will want to visit the Civil Service website. The Civil Service website will provide information on examinations that are either open to the public, promotional, or transitional. Keep in mind that 80% of state positions are filled through the examination process, so it's important to take any exam where you meet the minimum qualifications listed on the exam announcement. Before we move on, I do want to mention that all of the links and information in this webinar will be able to be found in your handout.
And if you haven't viewed or printed the handouts yet, if that's what you prefer to do, you can always do this after the webinar. You would have received them as attachments to the email accepting you into the class, and look for an email from the partnership for that.
Okay, great. Now that we know where we're headed, this slide is going to act as a sort of roadmap for us today. It'll help us keep track of where we are and where we're going. First, let's identify your strengths. As Yogi Berra once said, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. The same viewpoint applies to your career path. You need to know yourself, your interests, skills, strengths, and values before you know what kind of work or agency will be the best fit. As adults, we may think, well, I already know myself. And for the most part, you likely do have a good sense of who you are, but it never hurts to take the time to check in with yourself and reevaluate. So what is the best and most efficient way to gather this essential information? Well, one way is to take a self-assessment. In fact, research shows that most people who take the time to conduct self-assessments are more successful and satisfied in their careers. For those of you who haven't taken one before, you may be wondering, well, what exactly is a self-assessment? Is it a test? And no, it's not a test. Basically, a self-assessment is a way to get to know yourself better. A typical self-assessment includes short exercises or questions you can complete online or on paper. A self-assessment will help you identify your interests, skills, strengths, and values. We've included some links to free self-assessments in your handouts, so if you're interested in taking one, you can check it out after the webinar is over. Here is a closer look at the elements to focus on during a career self-assessment. You will want to get a deeper understanding and clear view of each as they pertain to you. Okay, so the first up are your interests. Your interests are things you enjoy or things that give you energy instead of draining you. For example, you may enjoy working with cars, training people to learn something new, or creating graphics for media or print. Identifying your interests provides the opportunity for you to pursue a career path you're passionate about. Please keep in mind that your mobility options within state service are going to be based on the title you are currently in or titles you previously held. If you are looking to move into a different career path, you may need to take an examination to get there. If you're looking for more information on the merit system, we have 2 webinars that might be helpful. The first is Merit System, Examinations and Eligible Lists, and the Merit System, Transfers. Check out those the next time they are offered. Next, you'll want to think about your skills. Your skills are the knowledge and abilities you have gained through life and work experience. You can also gain skills through trainings, certificates, degrees, and on-the-job experience. Skills are typically divided into 2 categories, hard skills and soft skills. A hard skill is usually technical, like being very experienced at Microsoft Excel. That is a hard skill because it is content-based and teachable. A soft skill is usually a personal characteristic, such as being a team player or having patience in a customer service setting. These are not technical skills, but they can be improved like hard skills. You will need both hard skills and soft skills to be successful in your job. When reviewing your skills, keep in mind that just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you enjoy it. Strengths are skills that you are exceptionally good at and you enjoy doing. It's essentially where your interests and skills meet. Some strengths might be creativity, cooking, communication, or working with numbers, and that's just to name a few. If you want to really enjoy your job, look for the ones that play to your strengths and not just your skills. I want to pause for a moment to give you a chance to think about your own interests, skills, and strengths. What is a skill or strength that you feel you bring to the workplace?
Let's use the chat box to answer this question. So in the chat, tell us, what do you think is a skill or a strength that you bring to the workplace? Okay, I'll give you all obviously a bit more time to think about this one. Okay, good. I'm glad we have an icebreaker here. All right. Steven says loyalty. That's a really good one. Sarah, patience, working well with different types of personalities. They're coming in fast now. Shannon says communication. We've got kindness, time management, adaptability, adaptation, learning and retaining new information, passion, great team player. The chaos coordinator. That's a good title. Team player, dependability and kindness, learn quickly, help others with computers, detail-oriented, humor, patient, team player. I think these are a lot of good ones. What do you think, Judith?
Oh, these are really great. They're excellent. I really enjoy this question. And I think, yeah, in the beginning, you kind of don't know what to write in the beginning because we don't often think about this, about what you are going to bring to a workplace. So thank you again for sharing. And I'm glad to see that you've already got a really good handle on your skills and strengths. If you did find this exercise difficult, please check out the links in your handouts to free assessments to find out more about what interests you. The final important aspect of knowing yourself is knowing your values. Your values are the beliefs you have about what is important and desirable in your life. In other words, these are your personal priorities. For example, if you value a work-life balance, you may not pursue a job that requires overnight travel 4 days a week. You may value being in a team setting, working with your hands to create a product, or helping individuals with disabilities. The best career and job choices are the ones that match your values. Identifying your values can help you decide what type of agency or workplace environment would help you thrive. And we'll talk about that more in just a minute. Next, let's talk more about researching agencies and job opportunities. We won't be spending a lot of time on this topic as there are other webinars that can help you with this, such as career options within New York State government and using the Got It search feature. To begin talking about researching job opportunities, let's start with a question. Do you know where to find an agency's mission statement? A mission statement is the vision or beliefs of that agency.
If you know where to find an agency's mission statement, go ahead and click on that raise hand button for me. Okay. A lot of hands went up pretty quickly, actually. So
okay,
let's
great.
see, 6 or 7 or so folks.
Okay, great. That's awesome. You can often find an agency mission statement posted right on their website. To find an agency website, use the agency directory website, which our host will actually post in the chat box for you. And then once you're on the agency website, you can typically find the mission statement in an About menu or at the top of the page. Each agency's website may be a little bit different, but if you're having trouble, most of them have a search bar that you can use and search for the word mission. Your career plan is based on exploration and making informed decisions. People who invest the time and energy to think about what is important to them typically know the type of work that they would like to do. And then, as we mentioned earlier, research the jobs and agencies that meet their traits. Did you know that there are 96 agencies within New York State government? From the Adirondack Park Agency to the Workers' Compensation Board and everything in between. It's likely that there's an agency and a career in New York State government that aligns with your values. To find the one that's right for you, read through their mission statements. Look for an agency whose mission statement aligns with your values, and then search for job titles that play to your interests, skills, and strengths. Okay, so here's another question for you. Where can you find out about titles or positions that interest you?
Let's use the chat box again for this question. So tell us, where do you find state job opportunities or titles or positions that interest you? I'll give everyone a chance to answer here because I'm getting a lot of similar answers. Okay, Judith, it looks like most folks are saying they either go to CS, Civil Service website, or to the State Jobs NY. And then I'm seeing one that's nysjobs.com, which I think might be State Jobs. I haven't heard of that one before, but, and yeah, job vacancies, and mostly looks like Civil Service or other agency websites.
Okay, great. Thanks everyone for sharing your ideas. For the purposes of today's webinar, we really want to focus on the resources that we know will be helpful to you in your state career. One of them is Got It, which stands for the Glossary of Titles Inquiry Tool, and the other is the State Jobs NY website. Let's look at these two resources and how they can help in your job search. If you wish to research titles within New York State employment before applying to vacancies, one of the best reference tools to begin this research is the Glossary of Titles Inquiry Tool, or also known as Got It. Got It allows you to search information regarding a specific title, agency, and more. The title search specifically will allow you to search a title's career ladder, job description, minimum qualifications, and the titles in which you can transfer. If you're not familiar with the Got It website, we encourage you to refer to your handouts, which contain a navigation guide, or contact our office to learn more about it. It is important to know that Got It does not show current job openings. However, there is still a variety of helpful information available. In terms of resume writing, Got It often has summaries and links to title descriptions. Well, why is this important? Well, it's helpful to view for both your current title and the title you're seeking. For your current title, you can view the title description if you're ever stuck when describing your current job on your resume. For titles you're interested in going to, viewing title descriptions is like doing your homework to become more knowledgeable about that title. This is a great time to reflect on your skills, strengths, values, and interests as you determine if the title you are seeking is a good fit before applying to the actual vacancy. Once you've learned more about the title you're seeking through research on Got It, it's time to locate vacancies on the State Jobs NY website. Once again, please keep in mind that your mobility options within state service are going to be based on your title that you're currently in or titles you previously held. If you're looking to move into a different career path, you may need to take an exam to get there. If you want more information, please give our office a call. In order to look for current openings, the best place to begin this portion of your search is the State Jobs NY website. This website is the most central location for state agencies to post their vacancies, and it is updated daily with new opportunities. On your screen, you can see a screenshot of the State Jobs NY homepage. Let's say you're ready to begin searching for vacancies as a current state employee. I have a question for you. Which column would you select to begin searching for vacancies?
All right, so go ahead and select the answer option A, B, C, D, or E that you think represents the column you would start with. I've opened a little polling panel on the right there. If it's not popping up for you or you aren't able to use it, just type your answer as Dina has into the chat box. And let's take a look here. You guys all answered pretty quickly. I know we lost one person to a fire drill, but hopefully they'll be back in a little bit. Can't ever predict those, but let's see. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and we'll end this one here. It looks like, for the most part, C. Everybody's really unanimously clicking on C, and then 1 or 2 votes for E, the general public.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. And yes, as a current state employee, one of the best places to begin would be clicking on the center blue column for state employees. There's not to say that you can't go into the general public. I usually go through all of them. State employees, HR professionals, and general public, just to see what's there. Just a quick reminder, state agencies post their own vacancies. So when you're applying, you are usually applying directly to the agency's Human Resource Office. You are not applying to the Department of Civil Service or the Career Mobility Office. If you have more questions on how to navigate the State Jobs NY website when looking for openings, please give the Career Mobility Office a call. Okay, so now I'm going to pass the presentation over to Tanya Stevenson, and she'll keep us going.
Thanks, Judith. Okay, now we're going to talk about getting to know yourself and researching job opportunities. It's time to focus on your resume. First, I'm curious, do you think state employees need a resume?
All right, we're going to use that raise hand button again. So go ahead and click on the raise hand button if you think that New York State employees need a resume. And I can see if you've typed it in the chat, that is also fine. I'll count you, because I think this one is going to be, well, pretty unanimous, but we've got a little over half, I would say, 2/3 the folks have raised their hand, Tanya.
Okay, wonderful, because the correct answer is yes. State employees need a resume, and it's important to keep it up to date. After taking an exam, How many of you have received a Canvas letter? When you receive this Canvas letter, it typically asks for you to send your resume along with your response. Think about the last time you updated your resume. If it's been more than 6 months to a year, you might want to consider updating it. So what really is the purpose of a resume? Your resume is a self-marketing tool that outlines your unique values as to an employer and can ultimately secure a job interview. To get your resume noticed at first glance, you want to ensure that it's concise, well-organized, error-free, and visually appealing. A successful resume should highlight your relevant knowledge, skills, and accomplishments. The goal is to make a big impact in a short amount of time. What should be included in a resume? Here are typical building blocks: a header with your contact information, summary or objective, work or professional experience, which would include relevant experience and accomplishment, education, including any training, certifications, and licenses, additional skills, honors, and awards, and any other languages spoken. Often people ask, how long should a resume be? Well, the answer is, it depends. If you have limited work or professional experience, a one-page resume should be enough. However, if you have been in the job market for several years or more, it is perfectly fine to have a two-page resume. One good rule of thumb is, if your resume is getting close to 2 pages, only include experiences within the last 10 years or highlight the most relevant experience. So many job seekers spend significant time and energy fine-tuning their resumes, tweaking a document until it is perfect. And then they use this resume for every job they apply to. This is a common error. Think of it this way. You wouldn't send the same greeting card for every occasion, would you? The same logic applies to resumes. You shouldn't send the same resume to every prospective employer. If you want to pass the initial screening, your resume needs to be tailored to a specific position. This is where the results from your self-assessment and your job research comes in. It's up to you to match your strengths with the job description and make it obvious. Let's take a look at a sample resume. Oh yeah, and by the way, everything we're about to show you can be found in your handout. Make your contact information pop so that hiring managers can reach you easily. Use a bigger font and capitalize your full name to make it stand out. Include live links to your email address or relevant social media accounts like LinkedIn if you use it. Include just one phone number, preferably a cell phone, and one email address. Eliminate your full mailing address. Just your city, state, and zip code will suffice. The next thing on your resume is your objective or summary statement. These two things are similar but have a key difference. Now, most objective statements just tell employees what you are seeking. For example, I am seeking a job in human resources where I can use my communication skills. The problem with this is that most employers are not concerned with what the candidate wants. Instead, they want to know what you can offer them. That's why a summary statement, a short professional outline that highlights your years of experience, job history, and major accomplishments is a great alternative. You can use a bullet list or write a few short sentences. Either way, the summary is a place to highlight your strengths you found in your self-assessment and how they fit the specific job opportunity. Once you've got the header and summary complete, you can move on to professional or work experience. Start by listing the organization, job title, and dates of employment. Generally, you will list your most recent job first and then work backwards from there. This is called a reverse chronological resume, which most employers prefer. You should not list more than 15 years of work history unless the job directly relates to the one that you're applying for. When writing your work history, you will want to focus on using three main things: action words, keywords, and accomplishment statements. Action words are powerful verbs that help your unique skill set stand out. They enhance the readability of your resume and grab the reader's attention. Next up are the keywords. It's beneficial to use the keywords that are found in a job posting and include them in your resume, so as long as they fit, to ensure that you are addressing what the employer is seeking. To locate keywords, scan the job posting for the descriptors you see repeated more than once and write them down. Examples might be organizational skills, communication skills, and teamwork. Some of these may match the results that you receive from your self-assessment. Work them into your resume and cover letter where appropriate. Finally, include accomplishment statements. You need to sell yourself on your superstar accomplishments. So be sure that you are focusing your narrative on these. When you think about your current or last position, it's easy to think about what you did, but you need to go beyond that. Think about what you accomplished and quantify each by using numbers, percentages, dollar amounts, or other concrete measures of success. For example, instead of just writing trained staff members, you may say trained 20 staff members on a new phone system, which increased our unit response time by 50%. Now be honest and don't make numbers up or anything on your resume, but use them if you have them. Next, you will move on to your education, training, and certification section. Begin by listing your most recent educational experience. List the degree or certification if applicable and the institution name and location with the city and state. The best placement depends on what employers would value more, your experience or education. Here are just a few guidelines. You will want to place education after your work experience section if you have several years of experience related to your goal. Hiring managers will likely be more interested in your work-related accomplishments than your education. Place education before your work experience section if you're upcoming and a recent graduate or you're changing careers and continuing your education to support your new goal. Once you have listed your education, you can create another section for additional skills. This should include proficiency in technology, programs, additional related coursework, and any languages spoken. Now that we have talked about what to include, what do you think should be left off your resume?
Let's use the chat box to answer Tanya's question. So what do you think should be left off or purposely left out of your resume? Go ahead and type that in the chat box. Okay, from Erica, short-term jobs. Megan, if you got fired. Stephen, anything negative, maybe previous terminations, age, gender, really old employment, high school information, right? If that's long ago for you. Let's see. Anything else you guys think you should leave off? Okay. Bad experiences, graduation year. Oh, that's a question. Should graduation year be left off? So lots of different answers there, Tanya, and then kind of a small question from Michaela about whether or not graduation years should be left off.
Okay, so now let's just review a few of these when it comes down to um, what we should leave off our resumes. Your comments went a little bit different than what I expected. So as far as the questions, we'll get back to those a little bit later. But we're going to move on at this point so that we'll make sure we get everything in. So I want to thank everyone for sharing their thoughts. But we want to focus on things in our resume that make us appear unprofessional. So what we're going to do now is take a closer look at what we should leave out. There's more in this in your handout, but here's a short list of some of the most common problems. Personal pronouns. Why leave out personal pronouns like I or me? Because it's your resume. So it's already implied that everything on it is about you. Instead of writing, I manage 5 employees, just put manage 5 employees. Jargon or abbreviation. Don't write anything that might limit your reader's understanding of your capabilities. Always use generally understood descriptors on your resume unless you are certain it will be read by people who are familiar with the terminology. And also spell out any acronyms. An unprofessional email address. If you are still using the email from your younger years like dearlover789@gmail.com, it's time to get rid of it. It's unprofessional and it reflects immaturity. Getting a new one only takes a few minutes and it's free. Okay, now that we gathered all this information, you can organize these using building blocks in various ways. The 3 most common resume formats are chronological, functional, and combination. When deciding which resume format you should use, consider your professional history and roles you're applying for. A chronological resume lists your work experience in reverse chronological order, which starts with your most recent position at the top. This is the most traditional resume format and for many years remained the most common. A chronological resume is a good choice for anyone whose work history shows a consistent advancing career path. Functional resumes focus more on relevant skills than on work history. The functional format focuses on the applicant's skill set relevant to the job you are applying for. If you have any gaps in your resume or are changing careers, you may want to consider a functional resume. A combination resume is a blend of the chronological and functional resume types. This resume format allows you to emphasize both your work experience and relevant skills. You can learn more about resume types and what would be the best type of resume to use in your personal situation in your information packet. If you have any questions on which style is right for you, please contact the Career Mobility Office and discuss further with one of our representatives. Okay, I'm going to give you a brief scenario and you tell us which resume format that you think is appropriate. Kim previously worked at Department of Environmental Conservation. They left their position as an administrative assistant to care full-time for a sick family member 2 years ago. Kim would like to come back to the state employment and saw a vacancy posting on State Jobs NY website for administrative assistant at the Department of Transportation. Now, which resume format do you think would be best to highlight Kim's skills?
Once again, I've opened the polling panel on the right-hand side of your screen. Go ahead and select the circle next to the option A, B, or C that you think is the best resume format for Kim. And again, that scenario is on the left side there if you need to think about it a little bit more. And if that doesn't pop up for you, please type your answer into the chat box, A, B, or C. And I'm looking for at least 21 votes because that's what we got the last time we did a poll. So we just need, okay, let's see, Tanya. The most popular answer is B, combination, followed by C, functional. There were just a couple of votes for A, chronological.
Okay, well, thank you guys for sharing again. And yes, the correct answers are functional or combination. Why? The functional resume format will highlight Kim's skills, not the gap in her work history. Whereas the combination will also be appropriate since the job that Kim has before leaving the state was similar to the one that she's hoping for. Are there any questions now about resumes before we go ahead and move on? I know there was a few out there.
There are. I've jotted them down, and I think we're okay to take a pause and just answer these ones here. So Tanya, and folks, if you have other questions, feel free to type them in the chat box. And if we can't get to them immediately, we will do it like this. So the first one from Michaela, Tanya, or Judith was, should graduation year be left off or left out of your resume? And I think referring here to either college or high school graduation year.
Okay, so a couple things. If you have a college degree, you don't need to put high school or that you have a high school diploma because that would be kind of apparent. You would need a high school degree or equivalency to get to college. So that's one thing, and I do not include the dates. No, I don't. I put the city, state of the college, and then that's it. The date is going to date you. My degrees are 20 years old, so it is going to date you, and we want to kind of maybe eliminate some of that, so you don't need to put the date. I mean, if they need a copy of it or whatever transcripts, they'll come back to you. They'll come back to you and ask you that. Now, I did have a licensure in another state, and I actually did include the license number on my resume. But then that was a little bit more, I don't know if it's public knowledge, but anyway, just to kind of identify that I had the licensure because there is a more identifiable way to show that. So I wouldn't include the date of when you got degrees. And I remember once somebody said to me, you know, let's say you get your master's degree or your doctorate degree. Okay, we're really getting up there. They would be like, well, don't include your associates or don't include your bachelor's degree because it's really apparent that you've gotten to this master's or doctorate level. You need those. But all of my degrees were in different fields. My associate's was in criminal justice, my bachelor's was in social work, and my master's was in public administration. Not only that, I had to pay for all of it. So I felt it very important for me to include it on my resume because those are a lot of different skill sets coming into play. So that was the reason I did it. But you may hear people say, well, if you get your master's, don't include all the others. But it depends on kind of what you want to set forth to the reviewer. And I wanted to set forth the different skill sets needed for each.
Absolutely. That's actually a very good point. And then we had a related question about maybe you haven't finished college yet, maybe you didn't finish and that's done, or maybe you just haven't finished yet. So how might you treat those two?
So that's an interesting point. we're going to talk about the cover letter in a little bit, and I would put anything on my resume that I have completed, because that's what the resume is ideally for. If you're in school or haven't completed it yet, or are going into an advanced degree, you can put that in the cover letter. And you could, because we're going to talk about it, you want stuff in the cover letter that's different from stuff in your resume. So the cover letter can kind of say, look, I'm trying to really advance myself and build my skill sets, so I'm going to get that advanced degree. And right now I'm in school doing that in the field of, you know, environmental science or whatever. And that will, like, of course the cover letter is supposed to draw them into the resume. So you kind of want to frame it as you're trying to enhance your skill sets, better yourself, get, you know, further in your career, which is why you're getting your advanced degree. But you've not yet completed, but you're, you know, enjoying it and you know, learning a lot and stuff like that. I mean, not that you would put that in your cover letter, but it's kind of like a given. But that would be a great place to put that information.
Okay, excellent. And then one last, this is a fairly quick question from Stephen. Is it okay to use your current work email address on your resume?
Okay, so when it comes to using your work, it can be used. However, you should have a resume which email that actually has like your first and last name in it. Like a personal email should, you know, you can use that one more so than your job email.
We do get that question a lot. Should I, even when they're calling us at the CMO and have questions or want to email us and they're like, can I do it for my work email? Because I think there's a feeling of, well, that's for work. And you're right, it is. But I mean, our emails are our first name dot our last name, so that would work. And, you know, you want to put on there something that you are going to see quickly and can respond to them quickly. So like, you don't want to have a phone which has a bunch of messages on it where they can't leave you a message, so delete all that out. You want to have an email address you're going to check often. If that's the work one, put the work one. I don't think it's going to look negative, because this is what the state is about, you know. You could have just gotten a transfer opportunity and been working for 2 months, but then got a canvas from a list, you know, and now you're like, what do? I just started this job and I got, you know, so there's always this kind of transition and flow within state employment. So I don't think it's a negative to use your work one. If that's what you're asking me, it's not negative to use a personal one. So whichever is most convenient and you can respond to quickly.
All right, excellent. I am going to push us to the next slide. Any questions that come in at this point will be answered, I think, at the end of our webinar, which should be in about 8 to 10 minutes.
Okay, so we can go ahead then and pass this presentation back over to Judah for the last topic.
Okay, so our last topic for today is going to be the cover letters. Before we talk more about cover letters and the building blocks for writing them, we have a question for you. What do you think is the purpose or goal of a cover letter?
All right, head to the chat box and tell us what you think the purpose or the goal of a cover letter is. When you're writing it, what do you have in mind? What are you trying to accomplish? Ooh, you guys sped up here. Okay, so first impression, introducing yourself, your history, your skills, expressing your interest in a position, and catch their attention. That's a good one. Strengths, how you can benefit the company, promoting yourself, getting a sense of who you are, all of that, and selling yourself to the hiring committee.
All right, great job, everyone. Those are awesome answers. And I agree. Some of the purposes include introducing yourself to employers, showing your interest. And it's also important to remember that the purpose and goal of a cover letter, because it will help you with your focus and keep your cover letter brief and on point. So I'm going to give you an analogy. If you think of a resume as the main course of a meal, it details your qualifications and skills. Then think of a cover letter like it's the appetizer. And like an appetizer, a cover letter should be brief and inviting. The cover letter will encourage the reader to move on to find out more about you in the resume. You can also think of a cover letter as your writing sample. It gives you an opportunity to show them you have good written communication skills. So what exactly should a cover letter include? When building your cover letter, it is essential to include the following information: a heading, introduction, body, and conclusion. And let's talk about each one of these in more detail. So what should you include in your heading? First, contact information. You want to make sure you have current contact information listed so the potential employer will have a clear method for contacting you. You should include a phone number and professional email address. For consistency purposes, I recommend using the same header on your resume that you use on your cover letter. That way, an employer viewing both documents together will be sure that they know that they need to stay connected, and it will keep things more organized. Address the point of contact. Next, you create your heading address to the agency. This is often where people may write to whom it may concern. And while this approach works on some occasions when there is limited information, we encourage employees to write the specific agency contact whenever possible. For example, Jane Doe, Director of Human Resources. This shows you paid extra attention to the posting by addressing your cover letter directly to the point of contact that's going to be reviewing it. You can also find this information on the State Jobs NY website under the Contact tab of the vacancy posting you are applying to. Once you've got the heading down, you're ready to get into the contents of the cover letter. First up is the introduction. Your introduction paragraph is your opportunity to express your interest in the position. You can even reference the vacancy ID number from the State Jobs NY website, so the agency knows what specific position you are applying to. For example, you might say, I am writing in response to vacancy number 12345 for the Office Assistant 2 position. Directly after expressing your interest, we recommend stating how you qualify for the position. This showcases some of the research you did on the position right away. For example, if you are applying as a transfer candidate, then you would write, I meet the qualifications for the position as a 70.1 transfer candidate. Overall, your introductory paragraph should be about 3 sentences. Take a moment to review the introductions on the screen. Which one would encourage you to keep reading if you were the employer? Read each one, take a moment or two, and then tell us what you think.
When you're ready, type your answer in the chat box. Example 1 on the left or 2 on the right. Which one do you think you should be using? Oh goodness, yeah, this is coming in quite fast. Judith, it looks like pretty much everyone agrees. It's example 1.
Okay, great. Well, I'm not sure who put these together, but they probably had fun with it. And yes, the introduction on the left is the more professional, whereas the one on the right is a little bit too informal and would probably not be effective, considering there's an LOL in there, and that's texting language. Now that you've shown your interest and identified how you qualify for the position, it is time to move into the middle or the body paragraph. The body paragraph is the section to tell the employer why you are the best candidate for the position. In this section, we recommend selecting 2 or 3 skill sets you have that connect to the position you are applying for. For example, if you are applying for an Office Assistant 2 position that is located at a reception desk, then perhaps you'd want to highlight your skills in customer service, organization, and a positive attitude. Your cover letter should not be a direct repeat of your resume. However, it is okay to refer to your resume so that the employer will continue to read on. Remember, the cover letter is like an appetizer to invite the reader to want to learn more. Now we move on onto the last paragraph, otherwise known as your conclusion. This section can be seen as a call to action. And by this, we mean that this is the time to state that you are looking forward to talking with the employer further to discuss your qualifications in an interview. This is also an opportunity to remind the employer how they can best contact you. This is your last chance to show your interest, so this paragraph should have a positive and confident tone. Sometimes it can be helpful to talk through the building of a cover letter, but it is also helpful to see a visual example of a cover letter. We have attached an example in your handouts to refer to as you build or refresh your cover letter. Okay, here's a good question for you. If a cover letter isn't required, should you send one anyway?
If you think you should send a cover letter anyway, you can either click on the raise hand or, just type your answer in the chat. You're actually all already doing that. So let's do it in the chat. Yes or no, should you send one anyway? All right, let's see. Actually pretty mixed on this one, Judith, but the yeses are kind of getting a little bit more traction than the no's. And then Steven says, follow the directions in the posting.
Oh, okay. Thank you, everyone. So while it's ultimately your decision, submitting a cover letter is always a good idea. Unless it says, do not submit a cover letter, then you shouldn't send one. Doing this will help you stand out from other folks who don't send them, and it will make you seem more thoughtful and professional. And I agree. I think it usually says in the vacancy posting, send a resume and cover letter, so I would yield to the vacancy posting. All right, so are there any other or any questions about cover letters before we move on to our final section?
Pause here for a moment and please do let us know if you have any questions. I see a couple of hands raised, although I did tell you in the last section to do that. So here, let me put them down. If they were meant for a question, please put it back up. Sorry to do that to you. But otherwise, I don't see any questions in the chat box, and we are nearing the end, which is our larger question section. So I don't see any now, Judith.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we hope today's webinar has been helpful in discussing best practices of resume and cover letter writing. We know we've covered a lot of material today. However, the most important thing to remember is that there really is no one-size-fits-all in terms of resume. It's ultimately most important that you feel comfortable and confident with your resume as you send it to agencies and start to go on interviews. Remember, your resume and cover letters are some of the best places to showcase your skills, strengths, values, and interests. By showing confidence in what you can bring to the position, you are showing that you believe in yourself, and employers can pick up on this when selecting candidates to interview. Throughout this webinar, we made reference to a number of websites, and I've included them on this slide for you, and you can also find them in your handout. Okay, so I have one final question for you. What did you find most useful today in our webinar?
All right, for this last question, head to that chat box and let us know. Was there something new that you learned, something that maybe contradicted something you thought to do, or is there just something that was a good reminder and you'll continue doing after this? Okay, you guys were quick on this one. So I see a lot of things about cover letters, but someone did not know about the CMO. So I'm so glad you came today.
Oh, that's awesome. Yep, we're here.
They are
small
wonderful.
but mighty, small but mighty.
Yes, definitely. Dates for the graduations that we talked about, for the degrees rather, breakdown of a cover letter, using a hyperlink for your email on the resume. All of that is good. Let's see. I see a question. I will come back to that in a moment. I think it's also Tanya, but a different Tanya. And let's see. Cover sheet. Okay, high school eliminated, things like that. Lots of cover letters. I'm actually really surprised by that, but good to see overall.
Okay, great. And I think that this is similar to, we do another webinar on interviewing, and I think with resumes, it's like a practice makes perfect kind of thing. As you do it more and more, you get more confident and more comfortable in it. Same thing with interviews, and we'll talk about that when we do that webinar as well. So our final slide is our contact information for the CMO. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to contact our office, and this is also included in your handouts. All right, so thank you everyone for attending. I really appreciate the feedback, the questions, the interactions. Tanya and I enjoyed doing this webinar, and we're here in our CMO office if you ever have any questions in the future.
Excellent. And thank you, Judith. Thank you, Tanya, for your time today, for coming to our webinar and sharing this great information and letting more people find out about the Career Mobility Office, which is a wonderful, wonderful resource. So I'm going to get to questions and answers in a moment. I already have one queued up for you, but I want to remind people of a couple of things. The first is that when you exit today's webinar, a new internet browser window is going to open, and it is our course evaluation. So if you just take a few minutes, 3, maybe 5 at the most, to fill it out, we would really love to hear how we did today, because we use your feedback, we read all of it, and we try to make every webinar better than the last. We also have a QR code that you see on the screen, so if you liked today's webinar, check out our listing of others. We are always working with the Career Mobility Office to offer these to you. As I mentioned, there are also recordings available, but every semester the Career Mobility Office and the partnership work together to make these available.